Hey, folks, welcome to a new episode of the Whiskey Ring Podcast. I'm David, your host. This week, we are going over to a pretty new player on the scene. This is a bourbon that, and soon to be a rye, but for now, a bourbon that is out of, in some ways, three different states. And we'll get into that. But I was excited to get into their story. And luckily for me, there hasn't been a lot of interviewing and such. So, big opportunity to delve a little deeper. So, to talk about it, we've got on Blake Johns. He is the founder of Smokeye Hill, and let's just dive into it. So, Blake, welcome on, and let's go right into what is the origin story.
Yeah, thank you, David. Well, first of all, I appreciate being on your show. It's a pleasure. And yeah, I mean, I always love talking about Smokeye Hills. So the founding story, I mean, originated when I was a little kid, right? Essentially, if I'm talking about Smokeye Hill, I have to start here because we have a family ranch in our family we acquired in the 1940. And when I was a kid, it was lore from my grandfather, who's the first person I ever saw drinking bourbon, that there was someone found a moonshine still on part of our ranch called Smokeye Hill. So when I was a kid, that really resonated with me. It was like this like mysterious, like rebellious, really interesting part of history that happened like on our ranch. I thought that was really, really interesting. So I guess in some ways, when I started the brand, it was kind of about finding my roots and getting to a point where I was very excited to pursue my passion, which was bourbon and whiskey. And it was about, okay, let's do something unique. Let's do something that resonates with again my roots. And that's where we get into the idea to use some of these alternative grains like heirloom blue corn, which we're known for. And it really ties the whole story up of my upbringing and roots in Arizona.
And Spokane Hill in Arizona, as you said, it was a hotbed of illegal alcohol during Prohibition. As you can imagine, there's not a lot of um, documentation about that because, like, why would there be? And with especially
Right.
with the story of the Prohibition agent, people ringing bells when
Mhm.
he was coming by, so they would know. So even the prohibition agent would not have much documentation for the higher ups that there was stuff going on. He could
Yeah.
maybe say there was, but there wasn't. So as you said, your family bought the property that includes Smokeye Hill in 1940. So this is less than a decade after prohibition ends.
Right.
Um, to your knowledge, at the time, was there any continued activity, or had the illegality just died out after prohibition?
To my knowledge, it did. I know that my family, and if the TTP's listening, my family did not have anything to do with making illicit moonshine illegally. No, what was interesting was, again, it was kind of this legend in my family. And so one of the things that I wanted to figure out was, all right, this is really great and sounds, awesome. Thanks, Grandpa. Cool story. But like, did it actually happen? So I did some research and I came across a few articles that kind of highlighted the story of Smoky Hill, and it was this whole kind of region in this rim area, northern Arizona, that was actually producing, pretty quality moonshine. And back in the Prohibition era, right, you're not getting the great anything from Kentucky out in the west side, and so what I uncovered was that whatever they were producing and it's not just on Smoky Hill. There were other areas too, but it was enjoyed and sold or taken as far out as Hollywood out in California. And so yeah, at one point there was a hotbed of moonshine making in northern Arizona. I don't know anything about who was responsible, who was doing it, what rings, anything like that. But I came, across the story, and then we were able to kind of uncover it with some of the facts that we found on the ranch. And that's it. I couldn't believe it. I was like, it made it even better. And to those that don't know, yes, the story was that um, there was moonshine being made, illicit, spirits on our ranch and other places in the area. And there was someone who, a local prohibition agent who, you know, would, in solidarity, I guess, with the community who, maybe he liked drinking on the side too, who knows, but he would tip the townspeople off. And the story was that he would call and say he was going fishing. And, whoever he told, word got out, and that's what they would do. They would tie cowbells to the necks of mules and let these mules roam through the hills. It's like a warning system, right? So, we kind of make a joke about it where it's like, all right, if you hear the bells, run like hell. And, we actually tied that as in homage all of our packaging. I don't know if you notice, if you've seen our bottle, if you look it on the shelf, it's kind of bell shaped, and that's purposeful. It's not very blatant, but that it's designed to look that way. We've adopted, the mules and donkeys as kind of our, mascots. Some of the merch and things that we're rolling out with these really cool apparel lines we're going to be launching soon. A lot of it has to do, a lot of the imagery, a lot of the wording and everything has to do with the mule into that story. So it is interesting. It happened. Unfortunately, I don't know any more detail than what I was able to uncover there, but we're trying to do the storied name proud, as we say, and continue on making much better quality whiskey than I'm sure they ever did.
I mean, I was thinking that too as I was looking at the area. So northern Arizona, unless you're really like around the Grand Canyon, even then, northern rim as opposed to the
Yeah.
southern, not a lot of water. And
No.
we have this idea of you can, distill anywhere. You can basically, as long as you can grow grain and you have water source, you can distill. But that may not have been the case. I mean, it was a cattle farm and
Yeah.
more an animal area. So I'm I am curious to see if anything else pops up in the research on that, because I don't generally think of that area, like the Colorado Plateau kind
Right.
of area, as much of a distiller,
Right.
much of a pre-modern age distiller haven. I know there's a ton now, but you know, prohibition and previous as either legal or illegal for that matter. So
Exactly.
to lead into the creation of what we have now, what were what were you drinking before you started Smokeye Hill, and within that, what kind of either flavors, brands, and such inspired what you wanted to create?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think it's a quite. I mean, I get asked that quite a bit. People are like, "Oh, what's your favorite whiskey before you started Smoke Hill?" Now, to me, there's an evolution where you go from, and again, like I didn't grow up in Kentucky. I just know, my grandpa sitting on his knee and he's drinking Jim Beam or Wild Turkey, and Jack Daniels, you like Jack. And so that was kind of my initial exposure, right? So at some point, early on, after being 21, of course, you go for that. All right, this is good. And you're kind of mixing it with some other, being honest, it was mixing it with Coke or some of these other mixers and other cocktails. And I was like, okay, all right, that's nice. But then to be honest, one of the things that really piqued my interest was going from that category to all of a sudden someone talking about some of the storied, really collectible, highly sought after, allocated brands. And I'll go ahead and name Pappy Van Winkle, right? That was one of the first big names that turned me on to the whole like serious side of bourbon and the really high quality sipping bourbons. And you know, there was part of the thrill of trying to find it at the time, which I thought was kind of annoying, but also interesting. And when I finally was able to walk into a bar and try it, it was like, oh my gosh, there it is. I cannot wait. Finally, all this time. And I tried it, and it was a lot better than the Jack Daniels that I'd been drinking previous to that. And that kind of opened my eyes to what I liked. Beyond that, it became a lot of the Buffalo Trace products, a lot of the BTAC collection. That stuff was amazing. I started to get into smaller. more craft brands. There's certainly some ones in Colorado that I was into. There were, and again, and like I would go for the Kentucky bourbons, but to me, I was also interested in I guess I wasn't so much of like bourbon has to only be from Kentucky. I really didn't know that much. So I was trying to, I was trying other brands in Texas and kind of seeing how different climates would environmental um, you know deviations might affect some of the whiskey. And I just kind of went down the rabbit hole. I mean, it was the big brands and then the Mictors and things like that that really kind of opened my eyes and was like, okay, this is an entirely different world, and I like this.
And I mean, you threw out some big names there that are obviously very sought after, very highly rated year after year. And I will say, just as transparency for listeners, as we record, there is a bottle of Smokeye Hill on the way to me to try, so I can't speak to my tasting notes just yet. Those will be with the when the episode comes out, so I won't speculate on that. But in reading reviews online and tasting notes from people that I trust, because we both know there are a lot of tasting notes
Right,
out there that
right,
are well, there were a lot of tasting notes out there that were kind of untrustworthy, and then now we've got AI tasting notes, and it's really funny to read some of them because they just make no sense. But that's a whole other
right.
podcast. Uh, but in general, your the original Smoke Eye at 93 proof. Is that correct?
Yes,
Yeah,
we have two bourbons right now. Yeah.
right. Yeah. So the core at 93 proof, and then the barrel proof one, which has variable proofs in the mid 126s to mid 120s to mid 130s, I should say, in general.
Hmm.
Overall, the response so far seems to have been pretty positive for you.
Hmm.
Now, between when you, I guess, so there's things to explore in that. So the first one
Sure.
is you threw out the big names, but also mentioned that the craft influence or the craft inspiration, shall we say. I mentioned there are a bunch in Colorado, which I was just lucky to visit a few of them a few months ago. And one of the elements that does set Smokeye Hill apart is the use of this heirloom blue corn.
Hmm.
Uh, it's not Notably, it's not the only corn, so it's a proprietary blend of blue corn, yellow corn, rye, and malted barley for the mash bill. The mash bill itself is, unless you're going to correct me here, undisclosed, but um,
Hmm.
I think it was the Rob report uh, said that 50% plus of the mash bill is the heirloom blue corn.
That's
So
correct.
okay,
That's
so
correct. Yeah.
on top of that, so you've got obviously it's bourbon, so 51% corn, but the majority of it is the blue corn. So that's the driving flavor that you're going for, not the usual flavor that some of those names like the Buffalo
Hmm.
Traces, Van Winkle, Michter's would go for. So between when you were being inspired by those and creating what you wanted to create with this blue corn in homage to Arizona and the location of the hill, who kind of guided you along that path, and how did you connect those 2 points?
Yeah, yeah. Great question. I know it's an unconventional um, grain, and look, here's where I was coming from, and how I feel, and kind of what drives our ethos, right? Is there are so many incredible bourbons out there. They are incredible, right? Your traditional mash bill, your yellow corn, rye, malted barley, wheat, whatever it is. Yellow corn being the primary grain, right? There are so many out there. They're fantastic. Now, I can if we focused on that, I'm sure we could have something that's competitive and it's great. But here's the reality. We are a smaller craft brand, right? To cut through a lot of the competition, we had to do something unique. And matter of fact, I reached out to just cold emailed some industry insiders when I was thinking about doing this, and I asked for advice. And to my shock and awe, I got responses. And, one of the things they said was do something to differentiate yourself from the pack. And based on the success of some of these people and the positions they were in, I was like, okay, like I took that to heart. Now, at the time, again, it was, we're not the only brand that's used blue corn, certainly, and you can do your research, or not you, but anyone out there, and see who those brands are. What I wanted to do, and again, the blue corn, yes, was influenced by my, growing up in Arizona, and it was in local cuisine. I had blue corn pancakes and tortilla chips, and um, I have a tortilla chip addiction, and so I'm a really big fan of of chips and guac. But um, the the what we wanted to accomplish, and when I say we, is myself, was something that was not too far of a departure from your traditional bourbon profile, right? And I've had 100% blue corns. I've had blue corns or whiskeys, and they're nice, but like I wanted to do something that was a little bit unique, but not too unique where it's not going to be enjoyed by people that are looking for something that's similar to the bourbon profile that they know and love. So to me, it was a win-win of saying, hey, look, we have an opportunity to do something in this space over here that's not really utilized. And at the time we started, this was 2018. I thought there was, some green space there to figure something out. And also let's do something where we're not too far out in this box, but to where people in this box aren't going to like it. So the idea was to try and just find kind of a middle ground. And again, just trying to make something that we thought was well balanced too. That was a big thing, and that's what we have the four grains: the blue corn, yellow corn, rye, malted barley. I will say too that about the mash bill, we are a high corn whiskey, so its corn is the predominant grain used in this, and there's less than 10% rye in it, and you know you get a lot of the flavor profile from that blue corn, and there's that kind of earthiness to it, which is this kind of nutty, like kind of walnut uh, influence almondy stuff, but notes. But yeah, that was the idea, and that was why we made the decision to do that.
And along the way, you got introduced to your distilling partner in
Mhm.
Lawrenceburg, Indiana, where the distillate is made, and then it
Yes,
is, as far as I can tell, it's made as new make. It's then trucked, or well, trucked
yes,
to
tankers, yeah.
Colorado in tankers, and aged in Colorado Springs. How did you get connected with that particular partner? Because when you're the timeline you're talking about, starting in 2018 with new, I think your first releases were in 2023,
2024.
2024.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
so
yeah,
even more recent. So in between that time, you had a lot of things happen. So that'll be my next question. But the first one is,
yeah.
going into 2017, 18, 19. This distilling partner has a lot of clients on its list. It's got a waiting list, certainly at that point. So did you kind of have to join the waiting list? Were you able to move ahead in some way, um, or was it a
Yeah,
question of like volume? Yeah.
I'll tell you what, there was a lot of that. So I had to piggyback off of a friend who who actually was doing some business with them. And um that was, it's really interesting, and it's almost kind of serendipitous in a way, how it did unfold. I talked to another founder who built a very recognizable brand and was no longer involved, but before we even launched, again, I was getting advice from everyone in my orbit that I could talk to. And one of the things when I told him this, he said, "How did you get these guys to do this for you?" I was interested in the same thing. They told me no. I think it was a combination of just timing and luck. And Truth be told, I believe that there were some experimentations going with some alternative grains at the time that came out successful. And again, like many things, it there is an element of of luck and timing to them. And you know, I think we presented um, a really compelling argument and case for what we wanted for, and then we were able to develop the mash bill and kind of conjunction with what they were able to do. And so it really you know started snowballing very quickly. And I'll say, like, starting this company, my background was not in this industry. So it was really just making calls, talking to people, doing as much research as I could. And then all of a sudden it started snowballing out of control. I'm like, okay, here we go. This is happening. But we did have to place a large order, and we did have to, what I ended up doing was breaking it up because, in 2018, we had a very, very small amount of barrels, and we're primarily in 30-gallon barrels. So, if I say we have this amount, like, it's, you have to compare it to the same yield as a 53 too. But we had to do a very large distillate order up front, and we spread that over 3 years worth of inventory. So that's what we did. That's how we made it work. Um, we were the first of its kind. I remember being actually going back there, and I was, because I wanted to see it in production and be there and experience it. And I remember walking, having meetings and walking, through the facility and with the, master distiller at the time. And I'm walking around, and they go, "Oh, you're the blue corn guy, the blue corn guy, the blue corn guy." And I started laughing because that's what everyone was calling me. "Oh, you're the blue corn." Well, we're happy to be doing something other than than what we typically do. And it was a unique experience for sure. And that was I'm so thrilled with how it turned out. And without naming the partner, but yeah, I mean, they've been fantastic. And I know there are many ways to build a brand. For us, that made the most sense to go about it this way and contract distill. And it's something that we've been very upfront about and never tried to hide by any means. And yeah, like any successful company or brand or whatever, it's the sum of its parts. It takes the whole team, and being surrounded by great people. And I'm lucky to be surrounded by a lot of great people and a great team.
And again, before I get into the next question, are you still distilling with that partner for future inventory?
Yes.
All right, good to know. So
Mhm.
in 2018, as you said, this was not your background, like whiskey was not your background. Uh, so were you able to just self-finance this? Did you have to get investors on board? What was the startup like?
Yeah, I did get, it was a combination of all that. So it was a lot of calling family and anyone that, and anyone I knew. And, I had, been saving and my previous career and had some money to obviously to invest into this. Yeah, but it was funded through myself, and then through some amazing family that believed in the vision and what we could do. And they took a big risk on me. And I'm so grateful that we actually have you know a very, I would say, very high quality whiskey to pay everyone back with. But yeah, it's a hard industry to get involved in just because of that. There's a very high barrier of entry. And we really are small batch. We don't have that much inventory. We've, sold out the past two releases we've done because it has been very, very limited, just because of what we were able to afford at the time, and, everything that went into it. So, um, yeah, I mean, right now we're trying to do what we can to obviously scale and increase when we have a very, small presence as far as the states that we're in nationwide. And so now that we've kind of established the proof of concept and the response has been what it has been, um, you know, now we're kind of able to scale and increase that so that we can bring Smokeye Hill to more people. But yeah, it's been a ride so far.
And so you go from starting up, you get the distilling partner, and something just clicked in my head too with mostly the 30-gallon barrel. So
Mhm.
when I think nowadays when we think of a 30-gallon barrel, it's usually or anything other than a 53. Um, it's generally because people want to get things out faster because it's not really cheaper. It's not more efficient
No.
necessarily. It might age a little faster in terms of wood contact, but that's about it. So what I find curious about that, what's kind of ringing for me is that normally you'd have the 30 gallons to get out on the market quickly and then either continue that and age longer or transition to the 53s as you go. But you still did not release until 2024. So was the idea, and between those years, obviously we had
Mhm.
COVID, a lot of different things happening in the market, good and bad. Um, so was the plan always to age for the, let's say, 4+ years that the standard Smokey Hill is, the 5+ that the barrel proof is, or was that something that you were just able to do along the line and you were like, okay, it's not ready yet, or we want to age a little bit more.
Yeah, fantastic question, David. I mean, um, yes, the idea that appealed to me, well, the true appeal of 30-gallon barrel was yes, in fact, and in fact, it's more expensive too because we have to buy, you know, actually more of them for the amount of volume that we had. But
Exactly, yeah.
the original idea was to get it to around 4 years, right? And we thought, okay, if we have any sort of advantage to the smaller barrels and all the science made sense, um, let's do it. Well, then, COVID hit, and you know, we didn't we were like, okay, like, it's kind of a crazy time in the world right now. There's no need to rush it. It's only going to keep getting better and better. And we still didn't have our distribution strategy, in place at the time. So it just made sense. Like we didn't, we didn't have to release it. And again, it was going to be better. And so, yeah, we were like, all right, let's get it to 5 years. And even our classic is what we call our 93 proof. It's the same age. It's 5 years old. And that became the new standard was let's get everything to 5 years old. Now, short term, long term, the plan may have changed more short term, but long term it was always, we do have 53-gallon barrels, which we barreled from the outset, right? So that's something. Spoiler alert that we'll have coming down the line many years from now. We think that there's the lifespan and the yield and just everything considered, all the different variables, that the 30-gallon barrels kind of max out at a certain point, right? So our oldest inventory now is 7 years old. We're going to get it in the 30-gallon barrels and 53, but our oldest 30-gallon barrel is 7 years. Um, Stay tuned next year when we get to 8 years, because I think there might be something maybe out there which might be interesting. Uh, and then beyond that, the yields are really small and we're still experimenting. Obviously, we're going to keep some to see how everything goes, but that's the plan. And then with our 53-gallon barrels, we're going to revisit that we're cracking it at 10 years old, see how that goes, and 11, and we'll just, age it out and go from there. But One of the things too with the barrel size is we also utilize a multitude of chars. So we have, chars two, three, and 2, 3, 4, and 5, and each one imparts an entirely unique, different flavor. And you could take a sample of char two, char three, char four, char five, and they would kind of taste pretty vastly different, right, from each other. And the three and the four, you know, here and there I mean, they're all great, but with us, what we've done was, again, to try and really bring out as much character and depth as we can. All right, let's, you know, you know, settle upon a blend of the different chars and see if that, makes, if it's something where the sum of its parts makes something better than one on its own. And ultimately it did. And so again, yeah, I mean, we talk about, kind of sparing no expense of making it better than we have to. And that's a lot of that comes just down to the barrels we use and how long we're doing it. And it's more expensive to do the 30-gallon barrels as opposed to 53. And I think, in some blinds and some of the competitions where they put us on the map, you know, the agists out there were, you couldn't really tell if or assume that we were probably older than we were, and at 5 years old, I'm pretty happy with how that turns out. It just means it's going to get better and better as it continues to go. So, um, you know, it's a fun experiment to see where we go from here, but we do plan to release some really fun things in the future.
Nice. So the other thing I was thinking about too is with the barrel sizes. They're aging in Colorado Springs, with great temperature variations throughout the year, relatively low humidity, because you're up in, I don't know if it qualifies quite as a high desert, but you're up there. So lower humidity throughout the year. So you're already dealing with a smaller barrel with what must be a higher evaporative loss in general than a higher evaporative loss of water, meaning you've got, less and less volume nearly at every step, climate speaking, climatologically speaking.
Hmm.
I feel like I add a syllable in that word and it drives me nuts. Uh, so,
Sounds good to me.
being in Colorado Springs, how do you manage what I imagine must be a pretty significant angel share? Like I'm just guessing based on what I've seen with the proofs for the barrel proof and
Hmm.
just kind of estimating, you must be losing about 5 to 6% a year, maybe seven.
Yeah, so I'm really glad you brought that up because the climate is one of the reasons why we settled upon Colorado Springs. A lot of people ask us, well, the brand takes place in Arizona and Smokey Hill, and why have you done it there? Well, as you mentioned, there's not a lot of water and it's very hot and it's very dry and not much temperature fluctuation where we're at. So, many technical for many technical reasons, we decided not to do anything and build a distillery on the ranch. It would not produce as great a whiskey as we have here. The temperature fluctuations, the altitude, yeah, the climate, the lower humidity, all of that creates a really, really great whiskey, in my opinion. Now, as you said, the losses are higher. It's not substantially higher. Like we've done comparisons to Kentucky, and on average, we're a few percent more a year than what they are, and we're around 2%, so it's not drastically different, but it it definitely has you know it affects it in many ways. Like you said, the lower humidity, more water's lost, um, which yields higher proofs. And so that, is one of the reasons why we're able to get such high proofs. Now, um, this stuff, like if we, for instance, if we did have a 8-year release, I can guarantee you it's going to probably be approaching hazmat proof, right? So that's one thing that, we're debating, like, is if we get those really high proofs, like, would people want hazmat or not? So, we love people's feedback and our customers and Smoke Hill family. So that's something that you can please let us know in any other channels because we really do want to make the best whiskey for our customers. But um, yeah, we found that the temperature and the climate in Colorado actually works in our benefit. And yes, the losses are higher, but we also get a lot of really great interaction with the wood. We get some very cold temperatures, some in the winter, some very high temperatures in the summer. So great temperature swings to really, make the whiskey interact in and out of the staves. And so, we've just noticed that the more of these hot cold cycles that we get, the better whiskey we produce. And you know, we're really focused on doing anything we can to make these incremental improvements, even down to the temperature in which we're dumping barrels at. Like we found that the colder they are, the mouthfeel is improved, the viscosity is a little bit better, and so it's a more expensive way to go about it, but we're able to chill them down and get them to the temperature we want and dump them, and it makes a better product. So you know, we're we're just embrace it. It is what it is. But yeah, we overall we it is a big part of the Smoky Hill flavor, I think.
So that's
Character.
something I have to ask about because it didn't come up in what I had read before. And it hits on something that I've said on the podcast before, which is that I usually love the Elijah Craig barrel proof B batches.
Mhm.
For some reason, it just like whenever they pull them, it's the only thing year over year that I could think of that consistently makes sense is why I like those batches more. Um, so you're chilling the barrels down to dump them. Where did that idea come from, and how long did you have to experiment to get that where you wanted it to be?
Yeah, I think it just came about accidentally to a degree where we were just dumping barrels at different times of the year and wondering why there were taking samples and wondering why one may be, have be slightly better in some sort of way. And I think, getting the you kind of get a little of that devil's cut, right? The stuff that's still in the staves when it's colder, it's like it's being pushed out. And so um it was, yeah, more than like kind of R&D and consulting with a few other people and hey, have you noticed this? And other people, people I've talked to that, yeah, like this might be where it's at. So again, this it's something that we're doing, that we've just kind of started paying attention to, and um, we're still learning certainly. Like we haven't, this is coming on our third release essentially, um, or our third batch, so to speak, and we're just trying to see, hey, how can we get better? What can we do? What are these variables that you know might make a just small um, you know, increase in creating a better product. And like we're gonna do that. We're gonna try it. And we're a craft brand. We can do things like that. We're small. I mean, we don't have it all figured out by any means, but you know, we care. We truly care about the kind of whiskey we put out, and that's what it comes down to. And I think again, like with our ethos is trying to provide great whiskey for you know people out there. That's what it's about. And we're certainly not done. We certainly, are satisfied with status quo. It's always what can we do better. So yeah, I mean, we get into kind of studying all those different variables and seeing if it has any impact.
So I want to move to the next question, which is one that will invite a lot of questions, but it's also, as you alluded to earlier, it's what put you guys on the map, which was the ASCOT 2024 Bourbon of the Year. So this is from the ASCOT
Yeah.
Awards with Fred Minnick. Very, very highly rated. You were dubbed in various articles "Stag Killer" because it beat out. It was funny. It beat out Stag in the blind that you guys were doing. Was still in the top 20 of Fred's list, and I do respect Fred's palate quite a bit. Um, so as you said, that really it put you on the map. So there wasn't a long runway between when you launched the actual product and getting this
Yeah.
award. So what was that runway like, and what was that hearing that moment that okay, we got this from Fred Minnick?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, a couple things. First of all, to kind of show my we have a fantastic team, and how we our strategy, our launch strategy, was basically okay, like how do we get this out there with and make sure it's good, right? So it was entering these spirits competitions, right? And I've loved Fred. I think in ways like this whole thing has been a life-changing uh event. We just entered, like I said, just on a lark kind of thing to see how it would stack up. Certainly didn't expect what happened to happen. Now, what I will say in hindsight, which is actually kind of funny about how the whole thing went down, um, is that we submitted, and again, having not done this before, you know, all of a sudden I get a we entered this in San Francisco, and that's got San Francisco, and I ended up getting a call on my cell phone, and it said Fred Minnick on the caller ID after we submitted the ASCOT. And I'm like, Fred Minnick's calling me? Like, we hadn't launched the brand yet and hadn't sold a single bottle to date. Like, nothing had happened yet. We maybe had just were talking to distributors at the time, or no, we had secured distribution, and we're all kind of setting up to try and get it out there and hand sell bottle by bottle. Okay. So I get a call from see Fred Minnick, and I go, oh, there's no way it's Fred. It has to be, some administrative, someone like maybe the check bounced for the entry fee, or, I made a mistake and they were calling to clarify something. So I'm like, hello, this is Blake. And all of a sudden I hear Fred's voice, and I'm like, oh, I'm trying not to cuss, but oh, like this is actually Fred. It's like, hey, Blake, this is us, Fred Minnick calling. He's like, hope you're doing well. I'm like, yeah, yeah, thanks. What's up? And he goes, oh, I just wanted to, I had a few questions I want to ask you, some admin questions, kind of thing. And asked me a few things. And I couldn't believe I'm talking to Fred Minnick. And this guy has kind of been one of my idols, and really shaped my knowledge of the industry that I was, embarking on. And I'm trying to sell him Smokeye Hill. I'm like, yeah, this is the story, this and that. And I'm sure I hope you like it. I hope you did, a chance to taste it. He's like, oh yeah, thanks. All right. And he just asked me just a couple questions, where we're based, whatever. And that was it. It was a quick call. In hindsight, what had happened is we had done very well in that competition. And he wanted to call and fact check to make sure we were a real brand, because no one heard of Smokeye Hill, right? So that was pretty amazing and pretty hilarious if you ask me. Now, um, yeah, how that went down. I mean, again, and I tell the story, and it is still the craziest day of my one of the craziest days of my entire life, at least professionally speaking. But I was out on my very first ride along with our distributor, and happened to be, we had a morning meeting. We knew they were going to release the results of the ASCOT Awards. We knew we were nominated or up for best small batch bourbon. Now, some of the brands we were up there with were incredible, and like these, very large craft brands. And my God, just to see our bottle, our whiskey mentioned in those with those names was so like unbelievable, and honestly like validating in a sense, where I had worked so long. We've been patient. We took a risk on doing this, out of the box mash bill, and waiting and for it to mature and everything. And so seeing that was unbelievable. Well, I tell to my colleagues and my partners, hey, let me know how this goes. But if not, then just, I'm out in the field, like, don't bother me. So I get a call, and I'm sitting across from our distributor, and they go, okay, Blake, did you happen to see the results? I'm like, no, guys, I didn't. Like, tell me. They go, well, we won best small batch bourbon. I was like, you have got to be kidding me. You've got to be kidding me. I mean, screamed, shouted. Everyone's like, what's going on? And couldn't believe it. It was like Christmas morning times 1,000. Well, then the next sorry, about 5, 10 minutes later, they call me back again. And my heart sinks because I go, oh my God, I knew it. It's too good to be true. They made a mistake. We didn't win best small batch. Ugh, like it was awful. And so they go, we didn't only win best small batch. I go, okay. And they go, we won bourbon of the year. And at that point, I was speechless. I couldn't believe it. And again, to see some of the brands we were up against was something that I would have never predicted in a million years. Um, again, to us, then seeing some of the comparisons or people saying, "Oh, you're stag killer," or whatever. It became this kind of frenzy of people to compare the two and this and that, and it was interesting and fun, and also something that I keep my head down. I like talking about the whiskey. We we never said anything about we are the stag killer. We never said we're better than any of these brands. So I want that to be on the record that we're just as surprised as everybody else this happened. And we're by God, we're honored and just beyond thrilled to even just be mentioned amongst these names, right? So um, but yeah, beyond that, the end of that day, my distributor that we were sitting across will never forget, guy Rory, we went from hand selling, hoping to sell maybe like 3 cases to the end of the day, selling like 300 cases. And it, I heard from Fred afterwards, and we didn't have a website up at that point, too. It was nothing had really been launched yet, and he was kind enough to say, "Hey, buddy, you know, get your website up, make sure you have everything that you need because it's going to come at you hard and fast." And that's what happened, and it was like drinking out of a fire hose. And it was an incredible experience, life-changing experience, but just humbling. And again, to know that just to, like I said, to be even mentioned and amongst some of those brands is beyond our wildest dreams. And yeah, it was quite a crazy event and year. And yeah, I mean, in many ways, like Fred and the Ascots, like changed my life, changed Smoky Hill's trajectory, and man, so grateful.
So just in the time we have left, I want to, because we're both on dad duty later on, so um, being conscious of that. Uh, the first question I wanted to ask was, you've mentioned a couple times that you have this fantastic team. So tell us a little bit more about who's on that team.
Yeah, so I mean, we have gosh, I mean, we're small in-house. We are, you can count it on less than your two hands. But the guys that I brought on were people to complement me and had the experience that I did in different ways. So, when anyone listening, building any brand or company, I mean, I wasn't all that familiar with distribution. And so, luckily I had a really good friend who I've known for a very long time who worked in distribution in Los Angeles, and ran the city, for his company, for a lot of these big brands. So he was someone that I got incredible advice with from the very beginning, and is now someone that is, become a really integral part of Smoke Hill, who's been working with me. And again, it's a dream because again, it's one of my really, real dear friends. We have, a love and trust there, and showing up to work doesn't feel like work. He told me about another guy who he worked with another, decade and a half experience in distribution. And, now he's on the team too, and our COO and Neil Hamad and JT Swierczak, the two guys I was talking about, who are, become very integral. There's also a friend in Colorado who's been incredible too. This guy named Paul Dunning, who is, my mentor and something I've learned a lot from. And again, what I've found, which is really, really incredible about this community, is there's not only is it in the passion behind people that appreciate, the bourbon and rye whiskey of all sorts. There's so much passion, there's so much care, but also we've met so many people that are just amazing, so nice, and people are willing to introduce you to someone they know, and hey, I want to put you in touch with this person. So just through a few friends and contacts, it's been okay talking to the founder of this company who I met at a cocktail party, or figuring out, hey, I'm going to cold email um, somebody that I didn't think was even going to give me the time of day, who responded back and gave me three life-changing pieces of advice for building the brand. And um, it's something that one day I hope that I get to a point where, I can help continue that and share any knowledge and anything I've learned along the way. But it's just, it's, honestly, man, like I said, I am living the dream. I am surrounded by people who I know, love, and trust, who are incredible, who we go to work loving what we're doing and make a fantastic product, something I'm incredibly passionate about. I go to bed, I eat, sleep, everything, Smokeye Hill. And yeah, I mean, we have a really, really great team. It's small, but it's growing. And again, family owned and operated. And one thing I'll say too is, I think some people are surprised to know how small we actually are when we've gone to some trade shows. And I mean, we have people email us all the time, and whether it's good or bad, or I want to let you know about this, or I had an issue with a bottle cap, whatever, we take that to heart, right? You're getting a response back from someone in the company, myself sometimes, Anthony Abraham, who's one of our right hand men too, who's out there emailing people, and like, you know, we're gonna maybe, I don't know, we send people surprises and little gifts and things like that, and just a way for us to try and build community and to we think of it as kind of a family. That's again, it's obviously I talk about family a lot, and building the brand, and that's what we want Smoke Hill to be and to be known for, and in an inclusive place where we welcome all discussions. And please come see us if we're at a event or a trade show, and come talk to us and let us know what you think, or if you have any feedback. But yeah, again, I'm feeling blessed and humbled, and very grateful to be talking to you too. And I mean, gosh, like what an incredible opportunity right now to be sitting here talking whiskey with you. Awesome.
I mean, the bottle's already in the mail, so like you don't have to pour it on too thick. But no, I appreciate it. So in the last two questions I have for you, uh, I want to I'll save the last one to be what's coming next, because we know
Yeah.
at least a rye is coming down the pipe. You mentioned a couple of iterations of bourbon as well, but something that came to mind too was having that I'm almost imagining it as just this giant wave. I don't want to use tsunami because I feel like that's going to be insensitive in some way. So
Sure.
the tide pulling back before a wave hits. So in your case, the wave hitting was clearly that ASCOT award.
Mhm.
Suddenly, as you said, you were hoping to sell a couple of cases, then you went to 300 cases. So huge burst at the beginning.
Yeah.
And because of Fred's platform, but also his reputation,
Mhm.
he's one of the few major whiskey figures that uh, non whiskey one percenters, if you will, which I count myself as, will know about. Like the general populace might know who he is, or
Right.
he's going to pop up first when you search for something. So in a lot of ways, that gets you a lot of not only sales but also press and notoriety,
Yeah.
almost free marketing, if you will. If you go past the cost of the bottle and using the stamp, there is, however, always an inevitable pullback when that first wave goes out. you win the award for 2024. You're the golden child for the moment, and then what do you do to backfill once that starts to ebb a little bit and consumers are really
Hmm.
looking more? So for me, there were two major
Yeah.
headwinds that you're facing. The one being you're using an alternative grain, which some people will just look at and be like, blue corn, that's not my normal
Right.
bourbon, so I'm not going to do
Right.
it. And then the other one being, which you spoke about earlier, is maybe a little dissonance between like the site is Smokeye Hill in Arizona, distilled in Indiana, custom mash bill, should be noted.
Hmm.
It's distilled in Indiana and then aged in Colorado. So for kind of an in between bourbon drinker,
Yeah.
they might look at that and be like, well, I guess it takes more time, like more mind time. You
Yeah.
can't just look at it necessarily on the label or just on the shelf and be like, okay, I'm going to grab this. They might have to look a little more into it. So, in the vein of that, what is the plan either now or going forward um, for keeping that momentum up in a way that's sustainable
Right.
and remaining as transparent as you have been? Which, just for the
Right.
record, I think you guys are transparent about every step of this. Like you're not trying to say you're an Arizona whiskey or a Colorado or
Yeah.
anything, but how do you plan to maintain that momentum in a sustainable way as you continue to grow?
Right. Well, those are all extremely valid questions. And, as far as, yeah, all that, I mean, look, at one point, like, okay, we're positioned in a way too where because we're, you just got out, like, because we are small batch, we truly don't have a lot of inventory out there. So it's allowed us to kind of withstand, like, sure, there's been a great surge, but we found that there's still a lot of momentum that's still been carrying on. Now, yes, we know that there's going to be another bourbon of the year and all sorts of, other products that are competing, on people's bar shelves and attention. And again, be like you said, you know, we're blue corn, we're non-traditional bourbon, and then people try to understand our story. I would say this, we it's authentic, right? I'm not going to try. I mean, we're being transparent. We're saying, look, yeah, we contract to still. I still think that's the best way for us to really concentrate on getting the best product that we can, getting it out there. Um, it's not feasible to make the quality whiskey that we wanted to in Arizona on our ranch as much as I wish it would. Um, and there's water's an issue. The climate isn't as conducive. So, a lot has changed since the back in the day and the whatever little moonshine stills I had and what we're trying to do now. But, I think it comes down to just us trying to keep our head down and focus on making good whiskey. We still know that like really only the one percenters of whiskey probably know who we are, or bourbon drinkers probably know who we are. We're trying to do some, do like as a smaller company, we are hamstrung obviously with budgets and finances, and we're trying to do, get out there. We're trying to do trade shows. We're trying to be seen. We're trying to do some fun events and really participate in the right activations and people where we can get some liquid to lips and tell our story, tell why we use the blue corn, why it's different. And I think, to be honest, it's, there's going to be purists out there who don't like it, don't enjoy it, or whatever. They're not fans of the blue corn. That's totally, totally fair. But that's the fun of this industry, right? And, are you going to buy Smoky Hill if it's just another, you know, same old, just sourced barrel that's a certain age from a certain distillery, like so many other places out there? Not to knock that, but you can get that, you can go find it. But to me, it was more interesting and more fun to do something that's a little outside the box. And that's how we approach the brand. That's everything we do. We have some really cool, fun, things coming out. We're launching a Smoke Hill Provisions line, which is where we're doing, some cool hats and just focusing on kind of small batch, fun stuff that like fits in the lifestyle that we all like and bourbon drinkers and whiskey drinkers. And so um yeah, we have our work cut out for us, like any brands. We're still new. We have to continue to stay consistent, build a reputation, continue to try and improve. And I think with these new offerings too, and which I hope we get to talk in a second, we have an opportunity to really kind of showcase what we can do. And we've been patient. We've waited 5 years to do this and put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into it. And you know, I can go to bed at night knowing that we do have a really good product. Now, whether it's for everybody, hey, nothing's for everyone, right? There's people that you're not going to make everyone happy. So can't control that. We control what we can control. And we're transparent. Shoot us an email, let us know what you got. Happy to talk about it. Um, and yeah, I guess
Look,
that's
in fairness to you too, you don't have the inventory to be for everybody either. So like
true.
it's
True.
small batch is small batch. Uh, so yeah, let's finish up by talking about. Normally, I'd finish off these episodes, and thank you. I want to know you've listened to a few of them, so you know. Normally, I finish them off recently with a legacy question. A little bit early for this
Yeah,
brand, so I'll have you on in a while
would love
to
that.
talk a little bit
Would
more
love
about
that.
that. But instead, let's finish up by talking about like I really want to know about this rye coming out too, because is it going to have the blue corn in it? Is it going to have a similar storyline? Like, how is that coming to fruition?
Yeah. Well, thank you for asking about that. We are very excited, yes, to say that we have had a rye in the works for quite some time, which does contain blue corn, and we will be releasing it this fall. We're hoping it's going to hit store shelves in November. We are in the process of bottling our third release of our bourbon, and in conjunction with that, which will also hit store shelves this fall, we're also doing the rye. Now, the rye I'm really excited about because it is a first of its kind to our knowledge. In all the research we've done, it's the only rye out there that's going to have any sort of blue corn in it. So what we found is much like our bourbon, which you get a lot of these kind of deep, dark kind of fruits, is that really blends really well with the rye. And there's a really nice balance. There's a lot. I would say it's a bourbon drinker's rye because we have the corn in there. It's sweet. It's really well balanced. Um, you're getting some of the dried fruits. You're getting some of the apricot, the fig, and I'm really excited for people to try it. And we're gonna there's it's very unfortunately very limited. We don't know the final numbers yet, but it might be around 1,000 cases total. And it's certainly not uber small within like 100 cases, but like that's in the six markets that we're in. And um where our goal is to have more of it one of these days. But yeah, it's going to be released at barrel proof. So right now I think it's going to be around 131. Um, I will tell you that it certainly does not drink, and some of our like our barrel proof bourbon feedback we get to is it doesn't drink like 134. Now, if you're a seasoned bourbon drinker, then that I would say that, right? If you give it to someone who doesn't drink bourbon, it might light their pants on fire. But for those of us that truly, that drink it and are familiar with it, it drinks below proof. So can't wait to get it out there. I think it's fantastic and lives up to the Smokeye Hill name. We're trying to, which we hope stands for excellence. And yeah, we'll be hitting store shelves very soon. And we're got to make sure to definitely get you a bottle. As soon as it's ready, we'll send you one.
Sounds fantastic to me. Your team has my info, so I'm looking forward to it. That's really all I can say. So with that, I'm gonna cut us for now. because there is more to be talked about. But we'll either do a maybe we'll do a mini episode when it comes up. So we'll talk about the release like I'll get to try, and then when the rye comes out too, so we can talk about it. Try to do it quickly because if you got 6,000 ish bottles, 1,000 cases, not a lot available. So if there's a
Right.
run on it, not much point doing a review if you can't get the bottle. That's how I look at
Right.
it. So,
Right.
um,
Absolutely.
but with that,
Sounds great.
Blake, thank you so much for coming on, taking the time to talk about Smokeye Hill, about your own journey and the start of this brand, which is really, taken the market by storm, clearly. And I'm excited to hear what's coming next. Hang out with me for
David,
just a moment after finish record.
David, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So this has been another episode of the Whiskey Ring Podcast. Thank you everyone for listening. There will be notes for where you can find Smokeye Hill, where you can there will be also tasting notes and more information in the show notes in the episode description. Please go ahead, like, rate, and subscribe wherever you are, and I'll see you all next week.